5 controversial Star Trek, The Next Generation scenes nobody likes to talk about. For all its philosophical contemplation of the human condition and nuanced exploration of socio-political issues, the Star Trek universe is not without its more bizarre moments. From problematic tropes and cheesy practical effects to poorly executed social allegories, sometimes the optimistic humanist message gets a little bogged down in questionable writing and production choices. And like every other series in the Trek canon, Star Trek, The Next Generation has its share of controversial scenes. A few are so cringy or even downright uncomfortable that some fans don't even like to think about them, let alone talk about them. Sure, The Next Generation is loaded with epic Jean-Luc Picard moments and triumphs of holodeck LARPing, but even in one of SCIF's best franchises, things like weak character send-offs, misguided attempts at handling complex socio-political issues, and inconsistent character development can occasionally creep in. Hang on to your battleth as we take on 5 controversial scenes in The Next Generation that no one likes to talk about. Scene number 1 is Pulaski's final scene in Shades of Grey. The only clip show episode in Star Trek, The Next Generation, the finale of Season 2, Shades of Grey, is widely considered one of the series' worst episodes. It begins with Commander William Riker, Jonathan Frakes, and Geordi LaForgue LeVar Burton conducting a geological survey that goes south when Riker is stung by a sentient swamp vine with nightmarish retractable blue claws. Almost immediately, Riker begins to suffer from numbness and paralysis that Dr. Pulaski Diana Muldaur attributes to a neurotoxic virus. To save him, Pulaski has to use giant brain needles that stimulate his darkest memories, giving viewers a Wonka-like trip through the show's most dramatic Riker-centric nightmare fuel. After working tirelessly to bring Riker back from the brink, the relieved Pulaski gives Riker a quick update on his condition. When the camera pans away, we never see her again, and fans of The Good Doctor hated it. Although Muldaur later told people that she did not enjoy her time on the series, it would still have been nice to see her character get a proper send-off rather than a weak clip show denouement. Scene number 2 is Yar's pointless death in Skin of Evil. In terms of terrible send-offs, it doesn't get any worse than Tasha Yar's death scene in Skin of Evil. Like Diana Muldaur, Yar actor Denise Crosby didn't have the best experience working on the series. Crosby explained to StarTrek.com, "I was just stage dressing. I chose to leave instead of just being satisfied with that." Roddenberry agreed Yar's death would add depth to the series. For a complex warrior like Yar, that should have meant an epic emotional send-off. But instead, she was unceremoniously bodied by a sentient black puddle out of seemingly nowhere. After a shuttle transporting Troy crash lands on the planet Vagratu, the investigating away team encounters the literal embodiment of evil in an ambulatory slime calling itself Amos. When Yar demands Amos let her people pass to their shuttlecraft, he smacks her with an energy shock, killing her instantly. Despite a heroic effort on Crusher's part, the medical team is unable to revive her. Worse, Amos shortly reveals he did it for kicks. Amos's sadistic attack was one of the most hated moments in The Next Generation, so hated that even Yar acknowledges it in the alternate timeline of yesterday's Enterprise, after a space-time rift causes Guinan to encounter a reality-shifted Yar who never died. Alternate Yar laments that she died a senseless death in the other timeline. The third scene is the brothers discuss Troy's reproductive rights in the child. Science fiction loves a good mystical pregnancy, and unfortunately Star Trek is no exception. The Season 2 opener begins with the ship's counselor becoming impregnated by a tiny purple energy orb the ship encounters while floating through space, and things only go downhill from there. Empath that she is, Troy immediately realizes something is up and contacts Dr. Pulaski, who in turn tells Picard that Troy is pregnant. Cut to the briefing room for what may very possibly be one of SCIF's best metaphoric representations of the controversy over women's reproductive rights, even if it is one of the most problematic scenes in Star Trek. As a distressed and sullen-looking Troy sits alone at one end of the conference table, Picard announces without context that she is pregnant to the top-ranking members of his bridge crew. Pulaski launches into an explanation about the embryo's alarmingly rapid fetal development. But the crew's reactions are equally alarming. Despite having learned Troy is expected to give birth in 36 hours, Riker demands, "Who's the father?" after Picard announces, "Our purpose here is to determine what is to be done about this." Worf, Data, Riker and 3 male officers argue over whether they should abort the fetus, study it, or abort it and then study it. Although no one seems particularly interested in Troy's feelings, she assertively interrupts them, declaring her intent to carry the baby to term. The 4th scene is Soren's post-conversion change of heart in The Outcast. The Outcast is another example of a problematic next-generation effort at tackling social commentary, giving Star Trek fans one of the most depressing scenes in the franchise. The episode revolves around the Enterprise's interactions with the androgynous Schnai while assisting them with a rescue mission in a pocket of null space. Riker teams up with Schnai named Soren, who secretly identifies as female, something that's forbidden in her society. And because Riker can't help but Riker, he immediately finds himself in a situationship with her. While discussing their mutual feelings, Soren warns him, "On our world, these feelings are forbidden. Those who are discovered are shamed and ridiculed. Worse still, Schnai who are caught breaking gender norms are forced to endure conversion therapy. Only by undergoing psychocentric therapy and having all elements of gender eliminated can they be accepted into society again," Soren reveals. After a moving speech where Soren declares she doesn't need to be cured, but instead needs understanding, Soren is carted off to conversion camp. By the time Riker and Worf stage a rescue mission, she's already been reprogrammed, telling him, "I was sick. I had these terrible urges. And that's why I reached out to you." While the conclusion was sadly pretty true to what many experienced during this era, this disappointing outcome is one of many reasons the episode wasn't universally loved in the LGBTQ community. The 5th controversial Star Trek, The Next Generation scenes nobody likes to talk about is Desperate Riker Gets Murderous in Parallels. One of the most controversial Next Generation scenes comes in Parallels. Upon returning victorious from a Battle F tournament, Worf is thrust back and forth between alternate realities aboard the Enterprise. It's a pretty cool concept, with the audience experiencing the trippy reality shifts from Worf's perspective. In one reality, Worf is a commanding officer, and in another, he is married to Deanna Troi. He and the crew must work to solve the mystery of what's happening to him while gaining different pieces of the puzzle found in each distinct reality. They ultimately discover a quantum gateway to infinite realities determined by individual choices. When the fissure destabilizes, realities begin to merge, causing dozens of Enterprises to appear on the viewscreen. As they realize Worf needs to travel back through the fissure in his shuttlecraft, the Enterprise crew faces an unusual enemy, themselves. While every other Enterprise agrees to the plan to seal the fissure, one begins to attack Worf's shuttlecraft. A disheveled Riker appears on the screen declaring that they refuse to return to their world, where the Borg have taken over. When the two ships exchange fire, Riker's is destroyed. For many Trekkies, this brief encounter was one of the few moments in the franchise so disturbing it rivaled the controversial decision to terminate a Vec in Voyager. Please hit the like and consider subscribing to this channel.
Row 18, plot 20.